So 2004, you go to Pioneer School, and then do you ended up getting accepted to Bethel soon after that?
No, because I got a very terrible score by the elders on my application.
Yeah, they have to give you a letter grade in like five or six categories.
Yeah, and
A,
I'm
B,
pretty sure.
C, D, E.
Yeah, and so my first application, I was there actually with another guy I went to Pioneer School with from the same hall, who was living a double life and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And they interviewed him and I separately, but I was in there. That was another meeting. They were bringing stuff out of the closet from years back, from when I was a little teenager, like about my music and stuff. And I'm like, guys, this has no bearing on this right now. This has got to be. You're not being you're being ridiculous. So they're like, well, we need to put a grade on your meeting attendance. And what if we have to explain on here that you missed meetings for almost a year because you were attending this Russian class. And I'm like, well, first of all, the Russian class is only like 3 months long, and it was for something spiritual. The meetings I missed was for my job. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we can't really tell you that we're going to give you a good score based on that. And I'm like, okay, I just want to turn the application because I really want to go. That's what I want to do. You know? All right, that's it. Here you go. So I didn't get accepted. And Brother Finley, he conducted my Pioneer School. And that the Pioneer School was a drinking from a fire hose of information, studying every night, and the amount of research you had to do every night was insane. Anybody that's been to Pioneer School can attest to that.
I remember.
Oh, you pioneered too?
Mm-hmm.
How long did you pioneer for?
8 years.
Wow, that's a long time. I think I pioneered for five. I think it was 5 years I did.
Yeah.
4 or 5. Anyways, I didn't get accepted to Bethel that year. I didn't get accepted to Bethel, and when I did go, I was as a temp. I was a temporary Bethelite, and I didn't go until 2007. So it was 4 years, 3 years after
Mm-hmm.
3 years after I graduated. But between that time and there, I was pioneering the whole time. And in 2005, Hurricane Katrina happened. I got my notes here I'm trying to follow along with. Hurricane Katrina happened, and I was at a quick build actually, and a sister had gotten killed at the quick build. She was riding with her grandson, and they had pulled into the Kingdom Hall parking lot that was being constructed, and a car T-boned her. And over the loudspeakers that they had set up, they said, "First aid to the front, first aid to the front." And then I went and I saw the accident. We went there, and I mean, she was dead. But of course, they were all surrounding the car and everything, and you know, that was pretty rough because it was like everyone is like looking at me, expecting me to do something, and I'm like, she's dead. Like if you've seen death before, you know what it looks like. And they were like, "You gotta do something," and I'm like, "I can't do anything. She's dead." And that was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was the same exact quick build where Hurricane Katrina was actually happening, and they were organizing teams to go. And because I had been involved so much with the RBC, I heard it straight from the top first. And they were like, "Isaac, we're getting a crew together. We need people to go down, and we want you to go. You ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I don't got anything going on. I'll go. How long do you need me to go for?" And they're like, "Probably a couple months." And I'm like, "All right. So I I had bounced around different fire departments between that whole time graduating in 2000 till 2005, and I didn't have any financial obligations really, so I was able to go,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to scrounge up what I could to go with as far as money wise, and I went down for a long time. My cousin, she's still a pioneer. She's been a pioneer for a very long time. She's actually been on assembly parts. Like every assembly we would have, she would be on like the assembly part. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was. She's a super pioneer. One of those. And Katrina, I saw some things there that just, I don't know. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of, the things that were stacked up. That eventually
You're
made
starting to
everything
wake up in
tip.
your mind and realize that something's not right, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I was doing first aid at assembly, I was doing first aid at district conventions and at circuit assemblies, quick builds. I started to see how many Jehovah's Witnesses were actually like medicated with antidepressants and just had psychological issues that were because of the only reason was because they were always stressed all the time. And there was a sister who tried to kill herself in the bathroom at one assembly. And I was like, what the heck? And I told the city overseer who I knew, I'm like, hey, we got to call the cops. We got to, there's a procedure you got to go through when somebody's having a psychological disorder like this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, it's just the stress of the world beating down on our brothers and sisters. They're bearing down on them. And she'll be okay. And I'm like, dude, no, there's a procedure. I'm a medical professional, and I'm trying to tell, and then they don't listen. They don't, that was one thing that really irritated me. And I think you actually, in one of your interviews, you talked to a guy who was a paramedic before.
Yeah, Trevor told me that I interviewed him in January, and he said something similar to you, Isaac. He said, when I would be in first aid and they would try to tell me, oh no, we can't call the hospital or we can't do this. And he'd be like, well, but I'm the one with the medical training but the elders were the ones, because there can't be a bad witness on the twoof.
Yeah, that's the most important part is the image.
Yeah.
And that very irritated me very much.
Yeah.
I saw that happen, and then there was another sister who I had known personally. And every convention, she would have like a nervous breakdown almost. Start hyperventilating, crying, because they would always have the experience. And my Bible study quit their job to be here, and they just got baptized yesterday. And she was just like, and her and her husband both worked. They had a family. It was like she could not pioneer. There was no, she couldn't. And not everybody can be a pioneer. And that's like, for a while they were pushing this idea that everyone's got to be a pioneer. And it was stressing her out so much to hear that over and over again that she was feeling so guilty. She was actually starting to go into panic attacks over it. And the third time it happened, because this happened at the assembly we have in the spring, happened at district convention, then it happened later on at the 2-day assembly that we have in the fall.
So you're seeing you're seeing some of the same individuals each assembly come into the first aid.
It was her all 3 times in that 1 year, in that one stretch. It was 3 assemblies all in a row because of the same thing. And after the third time, I was like, I'm calling 911. That's it. You're going to the hospital. I'm not dealing with this anymore. You're getting professional help. Because she never sought professional help. She would just talk to the elders about it, and they're like, well, you should probably try to pioneer, maybe auxiliary. No, that's not the problem. The problem is you just need to not be stressed out about something that's, not pertinent in your life right now. You got to provide for your family, not go out and service 70 hours a month. Whatever. But that happened, and one of the elders got really angry. He's like, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, hey, I told the brother who is in charge of first aid to call 911, and he did it based on my discretion. So don't write me up or whatever you do. Whatever the procedure is, do it, because I did what I'm medically trained to do. And I had a situation when I was in the Spanish later on. A sister was actually going through labor, and I needed to check the area down there to see if she was actually going through labor.
To see how much she's dilated, right?
Yeah, the baby's head was crowded. Her water broke in the bathroom. The mucus came out, and the baby's head was crowning. That baby's ready to pop out. And I had lifted her dress with another sister in first aid, and I'm like, yeah, that baby's head's crowning. I might have to deliver that thing here. And I'll get to this later, but Spanish is a completely different version of the organization than the English is. It is a night and day difference with how things. It's culture. There's so much more culture in Spanish that you have to follow along with the organization part of things, and it's completely different. And because I saw this sister's parts, you know, they were so irate, and I'm like, who else? I mean, there's me and then one other brother in here. It's like, do you want us both to look at it? I had this her friend, and so they're making a big deal about that. And I had already called 911, and they were on their way. And they actually delivered the baby on the way to the hospital. So if they wouldn't have allowed me to call 911, that baby would have popped out at that assembly hall. And then what were we gonna do? You know, it's like the procedures always take precedent over what's more important. It's not about what's best for anybody and things. That's what I've learned. It's always just they've got to follow their little procedures. You know, not what's for best for you and me. And so that's what I had seen leading up to Katrina. And then Katrina, I saw a lot of things that really disgusted me about how the Watchtower Society is. And when I had first gotten down there, it was just you've seen Katrina. It was terrible. And the Kingdom Hall that we were working out of was all put back together, all nice, put together. We had food there, everything. And we were working on rebuilding some of the witnesses' homes in the local area. When I had first gone in the Kingdom Hall, the second day I was there was military personnel in the parking lot, military personnel using the bathroom. There was the National Guard there. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And because they were patrolling the areas because it was so bad after what had happened. And we were used to seeing that on a regular basis. And what certain witnesses were doing was taking their pictures with themselves like, oh, I'm in a disaster area with the military, I'm in need greater. And that was before social media really took off. But they were doing that, and that kind of irritated me it irritated me that people taking pictures of destruction, people's houses destroyed, and like just posing in front of it, you know? Like,
yeah, like with big smiles, like they're on vacation.
Yeah, like, look at this. Oh, it's a blown up house. Ah. And I was like, what? And because I had seen people in distress with my job and stuff, and I had seen how bad people's lives can get when they're in need of true help, I knew I could see how the situation was down there. And after we had gotten our teams organized on what we were going to do and stuff, we'd walk around, and I'm sure you've seen, it's like a box that they would paint on the house, and then there'd be an X, and then they would put a number.
I remember that.
Corner. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of these houses, it was boom, boom, dead, 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 dead. And it kind of like, at the time, you're like, wow, this is what Armageddon's going to be like, you know, because we're just going to be walking around looking for people we know. You know, that's how it felt. And, yeah, it was really strange. We started to get our crews ready to do the repair work, and there was certain witnesses who were wealthy who were very angry that we didn't help with storing away their valuables and helping them with stuff like that. They're like, you guys should have gotten here earlier. I lost all kinds of stuff in my house that was really expensive. I'm like, really? Somebody died next door to you, and that's what you're worried about? And then we were working on a house, and the neighbor was a disfellowship person, and we couldn't go over there and help them out because they were disfellowshipped. I remember, because I was talking to the guy, and he was asking me, he's like, hey, so blah blah blah, which Kingdom Hall are you working out of? I'm like, oh, you witness? He's like, yeah, but I'm disfellowshipped. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what do you need, you know? And he's like, oh, well, I don't know if you're allowed to help me. I'm like, why not? Is your family going to meetings? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, I'll talk to somebody. And I wasn't anybody big or anything. I talked to one of the elders who was coordinating the group. I'm like, hey, so this neighbor, I guess it's supposed to be like, yeah, we're working on that, but I don't know about that right now. And I'm like, really? Okay, whatever. And so that's like, even at that point, they were still like drawing lines, which is sickening. And then the Watchtower also profited from all of that too. Do you know that?
I've heard about that. I mean, did you see that happening? Where what I heard was they would take the insurance money for themselves
Yes.
and then get donated materials and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, we were asked to bring down all the material we could, all of our tools. I mean, we weren't getting paid. We were volunteering all that time. And so the whole time we were down there was on our dime. Some of these guys had businesses that they left up there and they were living off savings to just help and help. They had families there that they didn't have with them. And it was all volunteer labor that repaired their home. But then when their insurance claim came through, they had to give all that insurance claim to the Watchtower Society. They had to agree upon that before we would work on their home. And I saw some of the paperwork. I wish I would have grabbed a form or something to keep, but I didn't have a chance to, because that would be really cool to have right now and put it on JWFacts. But just to see the wording of it, the legal terms. But yeah, I didn't think a lot about it at the time, like how deep it actually went. But I mean, that was their primary goal, was to make sure that they, and there's a guy I went to Bethel with that lived down there, and I stayed in touch with him a few years, and he said that there were still people in the congregation, and some of them had lost privileges because they hadn't repaid all of that money that they owed the Watchtower. So they were actually being punished because of, it's like, whatever.
Man. So you had quite a transformative experience working down there for what? So 2 or 3 months you were there?
Yeah, I went down in August, and then I came back shortly after that. So in October, I think, and then I went again in January for about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it opened my eyes. It opened my eyes because they were helping other people to a certain extent, a very small extent, but they weren't helping everybody. They weren't sharing their food, their water with everyone, unless it was like, oh, but come to the meeting tonight and you can, have this Bible study, and that's how you can live forever. And that's their goal, and that is the goal worldwide, is to just have Bible studies, place literature, get hours, make more students. It's not to have a global organized work to house people, to cure people of their ailments, to feed people, nourish people, to help people less fortunate than us that aren't in our religion. It's only a commercialized objective, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it doesn't go beyond that. And there's a scripture you used in your meeting, James 1. Was it James 1, I think?
Yeah, keep yourself with take care of widows and orphans in their need.
Yes. And that's always been one of my favorite scriptures, because it shows that we can't just have the one goal of just going door to door and just boom, Bible, 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 Bible. That's not what Jesus did. I mean, Jesus was preaching all the time, but he was also feeding people, helping people, healing people. I mean, it was all these things that made him who he was. And if he's the example we're supposed to follow, then why aren't we doing all these other things?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that really kind of troubled me, because I was seeing all these other religious organizations down there doing these things. The Watchtower Society wasn't. They were just rebuilding homes, rebuilding kingdom halls. they were helping other people to a small extent, but not like all these other religious groups were. And they were in the Watchtower. The witnesses down there were just making fun of all the other religions the whole time. They're like, "Oh, look at them! They've got a small group of people down here trying to, run a blood drive." I'm like, "Oh, okay, blood drive, whatever." And yeah, so that was Katrina. And after I came back from that, I went back to college again, and I actually got deleted as a pioneer while I was in college the second time for paramedic school because I had a Myspace. And when Myspace first came out, all of the witness kids in the air were all connected to it. So, it was new, and I don't even, is Myspace still around even?
I think it is.
Okay. Anyways, I had it, and there was actually pictures on there of another sister in her bikini because we were all at the beach one day. And it's like, hey, we're all at the beach. And they're like, oh, look at this. She's in her bikini. One elder from another hall printed out all of our, he found us on the computer and printed out all of our profiles on paper and sent it to all the corresponding congregations that they all belong to. And then I had stuff typed on there. I had like quotes from Family Guy that were dirty, and so did my brother. So we both kind of got a slap on the wrist. But I was a pioneer, so I actually got removed as a pioneer, even though I never heard the announcement. Like, they never made an announcement that I was removed. They just told me in the meeting, "Oh, you're not a pioneer anymore, Isaac." And then it was me and like all the other kids. It was me and my cousin, my brother, and like two other kids who weren't in the clique of that elder's family. And then when we got out, they were all like looking at us like, "Ha, got you." And we're like, "Really? How'd you know?" And so, I mean, it was still like I said earlier, because of what had happened, it was affecting even to that extent. That many years later, that vendetta was still chewing away at us. And so that happened. I was in school, and then I met a girl from a couple years ago before I went to Katrina, and I started dating her pretty seriously. And I had talked about trying to go to Bethel again. And she's like, yeah, why don't you try to do that? And I'm like, okay. And so I applied to Bethel and went. I got accepted. My acceptance letter in like August, I want to say, of 2007. And I dropped out of college to go to Bethel. I could have stayed another 6 months and gotten my certificate, but I dropped out of paramedic school 6 months before I could have finished it, which was, I regret that totally now because I'm still paying the student loan for that thing. So I got accepted. I went and I saved money because you don't get paid if you're a temp.
No.
And I was only there 2 months, and I think you got to be there like 3 or 4 months before they give you a stipend.
Yeah. Now, hold on a second, Isaac. Did you go to Watchtower Farms or Brooklyn, or where did you go?
It's Brooklyn.
Okay. So, and this would have been what, 2006 or 7 or something?
It's 2007 in the fall.
Okay.
And what I did is I got accepted to Brooklyn, and I worked in the design build department, and we were working on rebuilding all of the Kingdom Halls in Manhattan, Brooklyn. We had to remodel them and bring them up to code because a lot of them were built a long time ago and had to be remodeled. So we were doing that. And my first day there, I find out that I'm not going to be attending morning worship most of the time. I'm going to be at Bethel because our work was so important that we had to like get up 2 hours earlier than all the other Bethelites and meet before morning worship and go out because it was such a long drive to get out to Canarsie, Brooklyn. You ever been out there? Far Rockaway?
No.
It's way past. There's Far Rockaway, Canarsie, but it's 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 a long drive, and it took about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get out there, and this is still in the city, so we would get up early and go over to the Watchtower and had breakfast and stuff. And I only attended morning worship, man, handful of times, because we were working before they actually met for morning worship. Did they do that kind of thing when you were there? Did they have the early crews?
Oh yeah, they had night workers. They had all sorts of shifts, and they would, like, sometimes I was in food service. I was a waiter, and sometimes we would have to pack up sack lunches for all you kind of guys and like have them all ready to go, so that you
Yeah,
guys could go at weird times. I remember making sack lunches for night
yeah.
workers or for odd shift people and stuff like that. But you didn't get nearly as good of food, I can tell you that.
No, 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 no. No, we had leftovers.
Yeah, you didn't
We
get you
had.
missed out on the good food.
I know. I was pretty mad about that. Um, Saturdays, was my only chance to get it, but I usually ended up working just to be nice.
Hmm.
But we would go and we go out to these kingdom halls and work on them. And sometimes the congregation was supposed to come out and give us food. The local congregation would, and that would never happen. We're like, hey, we don't have any food here, and they're like, hey, the congregation's supposed to make food for you. Well, no one's here. All right, whatever. And so there was 2 times we didn't have lunch at all. And when the local congregation would come over, like, a lot of them were like, yeah, I've never been to Bethel yet. I'm like, dude, you live like, you know, in the same county as Bethel. Like, you live 2 hours away. How do you never go? There's people who live on the other side of the country that come here. And they're like, oh, I just never been there. And I was starting to hear that a lot. Everybody I'd meet, I'd work at a different kingdom hall. And they're like, yeah, I've never been to Bethel yet. Thanks for helping us out. And I think and then even serving in the congregation, I served in a Spanish congregation in Queens. And their attitude was always just like, yeah, we need another Bethelite to handle this responsibility. We need another ministerial servant. Tell Bethel to send one. That was like their attitude. They're like, oh, geez, okay. But then they never been there. So they just picture Bethel as this little factory spitting out helpers to the congregations, spitting out slaves. And, so like right when I got there, they're like, oh, okay, so can you give this talk next week? And I'm like, sure. And that was fun. It was a fun experience. I tell you, I never done so much drinking in my life till I went to Bethel.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most drinking I had ever done up to that point in my life. And I mean, my friend's garbage sounded like
Clink, clink, clink.
all that glass going, and
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw plenty of that there too. And virtually everybody that's at Bethel will tell you that it's drinking is winked at. It's rarely you rarely hear them talk about it at morning worship. They love to talk about, don't give a back massage, you might turn gay, but they don't talk about no. I heard that morning worship several times, but they never talked about drinking. Hardly. Well, maybe one time, but it was rare.
oh, that's because Daddy Rutherford was an alcoholic, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
want to give him a bad image.
Mm-hmm. Well, plus the schedule that you have at Bethel. I mean, sometimes there's some of us that just. I mean, some people just needed to drink
Right.
just to
Oh
just
yeah.
to keep it together. Either that or get on pills or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know how a lot of them guys did it. Some of those guys were there for a long time too,
Mm-hmm.
and but I could tell, I'm like, wow, you're pretty seasoned, because they would be pounding drinks back that were just like, wow. I did. None of them drove, but
Right.
it was unreal. I didn't expect. I knew it was going to be fun, but I didn't expect it to be that crazy. And because I was in Spanish, I would be at parties and stuff a lot. Because Spanish have parties all the
Oh yeah,
time.
they love to dance.
Oh man,
Puerto
I love
Rican, the
Spanish.
Puerto Rican brothers and sisters would just, as soon as they'd get to a wedding reception, they wouldn't wait for the bride and groom. They'd just dance.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're in Spanish. Baby showers, graduation parties, anything that where 10 or more people show up, there's boof, the music dancing. Oh man, any excuse. I
Yeah,
loved it.
they enjoy it. Yeah.
But yeah, I would get back to Bethel, and we had like a key. It was it was an ID card, and it had your name and picture on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had to put that against the door, and bloop, it would open the door. But then the guy at the desk your name would pop up on the little thing showing what time you came in. Some nights I get back at like 2 in the morning, and I'm like, I'm in Spanish, don't worry about it. I wasn't doing anything bad. And they're like, oh, okay. And because I guess around Bethel, if you're in the Spanish and you get back late, they know you were at a party or at a wedding or something. But if you're just a regular brother in English and you get back really late, they're like, hey, so where were you exactly? You sure you weren't at the strip club? So that was good. I got away with that. And my ex fiance and I broke up while I was at Bethel. She was in New York to come to see me while I was there, and I gave her a tour and everything. And yeah, I found out she was seeing another guy while I was there, so that hurt a lot because I really liked her, and I think now looking back on it now, I only liked her because she was a pioneer. And I mean, there was really like we would have phone conversations that were just once it deviated from organizational type things, it was just kind of like really hard to find things in common with her that really were fun. I mean, we would have fun, but it was just kind of like I see a lot of witnesses do that. They marry somebody else without really, really finding connections beyond what their needs are in the organization, and that's why there's some of these marriages that are just so
Yeah, there's a lot of
weird.
there's a lot of mismatched couples that are witness marriages, and they have to lump it. You can't have an amiable split when you're witnesses. Someone has to fornicate, adulterate. That's the only way.
Yeah,
So yeah,
right.
it's there's a lot of people trapped in those crappy mismatched marriages. So how long were you in Brooklyn then?
I was there for 2 months because I
Mm.
was a temp, and I wanted to stay because after I broke up with after we split up, I was like, I got nothing now. I can stay here forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stay here. And I told my overseer, I was like, hey, I got nothing going on now. Like my fiance and I are broken up, and because on my application at the time I turned it in, I had put that I'm not. What is the wording?
Pursuing
Are
a
you
relationship.
yeah, pursuing a yeah, and I put no, and so that helps expedite your application, and by having that, and I was like, hey, can you figure out if you can pull some strings to get me to stay here? And he's like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And he got back to me the next day. He's like, hey, I'm still working on it, and it eventually happened was I found out that the Gilead graduation and the annual meeting were going to be the very next week. So they had to send a lot of the temps home
They
anyways.
needed the space.
They needed all that space. I stayed in 90 Sands,
Yeah.
the new build. If they redid it, yeah. And I was like, okay. And actually, the day I was leaving was like 2 days before all that was going to happen, where all the family was going to start pouring in. So they were like, hey, we need you out of your room early so we can clean it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. So I like had to camp out in the laundry room with all my luggage and stuff for like 8 hours before I flew out. And yeah, I got to. I don't know if he lived. I don't know where the governing body live at Bethel, but I know they got their own offices and stuff. But I saw Guy Pierce almost every single day there, and
Yeah,
he had
Guy was a circuit overseer that was kind of took me under his wing and helped me go to Bethel. He taught my pioneer school.
really
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, he was
huh?
nice. He was
That's cool.
nice to me.
Yeah, yeah, he was nice too. He always had cool little one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, how you doing, brother Pierce? Like I'd see him, and he like, hey, I feel like $1,000,000, stinky and green and wrinkly. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, and then he followed up with another one-liner. He's like, but I don't need $1,000,000. I'm the richest man in the world. I got a penny. And I'm like, a penny?
Yeah,
And
his
penny was
wife.
his wife's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, man. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. And I was like, oh, man, I don't have any good one-liners that are Bethel appropriate for this guy. Oh, too bad. But he had actually met my dad at a convention that summer because my dad was in charge of the sound department and everything. And he had met him, and he's like, hey, I appreciate you doing a great job on the sound and stuff, blah, blah. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was like, hey, my dad said that he met you. He talked to you at the assembly. He's like, oh, yes, he did a good job on the sound. And I was like, yeah, okay. And we every day we had a discussion. So he was the one governing body member I was able to actually, like, see in life, But
Mm-hmm.
other than like at the different Bethel meetings, Brother Let was at one, and then I met Brother Barr when I was a kid. My father met Brother Norn when he was a kid. My
Mm.
dad went to the Yankee Stadium assembly when he was younger, like that big 7-day convention or whatever it was when they camped
Right.
out.
Yeah,
My dad was able to meet
250 some
there.
thousand love them and all that.
Yeah, yeah. So my dad was like, when you go there, try to meet all the governing body for me and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'll take, I'll be working, but, I'll see what I can do. But, they set them on they got them on this pedestal so high that, they're more than human. And, I don't know, Guy Pearce seemed like a really normal guy to me. He didn't seem like he had attitude like some of the other ones kind of do. Because I know there's one or two before that I've heard stories about that had real attitude issues.
Oh, several of them did when I was there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you didn't. I'm assuming you didn't go back to Bethel after the temporary work.
No, I didn't. It was down to the wire too. It was a couple days before I was supposed to leave, and I was trying. I was in my I was talking to my overseer about it, and then there's another brother who actually lived on the same floor as me, and you'll recognize him. You remember that Bible drama video? What will I do with my life? The coach.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Remember
right.
the coach for the?
Yeah,
Uh,
the young guy that was the track run that was the runner.
yeah, the coach for him. The southern accent. But his name was Jim Jones of all
Mm.
names.
Yeah, of all names.
And he lived on my floor, and my first meeting I went to was at the Boster congregation below the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and he conducted it, and he walked with me over there, and he's like talking to me about blah blah blah, I've been to Bethel this long, and I'm like, I recognize you from somewhere, you look so familiar. He's like, oh, do I? Oh, you might have seen me at an assembly. And I'm like, no, it's not that, it's not that. And then, like, halfway through him conducting the Watchtower, I'm like, he's the coach. And I figured it out. And I'm like, you're the coach. How come you didn't tell me? He's like, oh, I was going to tell you eventually. And so there was him. I was like, Jim, you gotta help me out. I want to stay here. He's like, I'll see what I can do. And it didn't happen. And I ended up going home, and the annual meeting happened. I didn't get to go to that, or I didn't get to go to Gilead because I didn't know anybody, so I wasn't able to pull any of those cards. But I went home, and a couple days after I was home, I had a letter in the mail that said Isaac Bourne, and it said Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. It didn't say, because Watchtower is religious order when you go to work at Bethel. When I got my Bethel acceptance letter, it's the religious order of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm like, Christian Congregation? Oh, what's this? And it was my acceptance into the Spanish class
Mm.
that they were doing up in Michigan to help ones who were pioneers participate in working in a Spanish congregation. They were encouraging a lot of brothers because up there they didn't have enough brothers to fulfill all the duties for Spanish. And I was excited because I saw it. I'm like, oh, wow, that was fast. Bethel is taking me back. And it was that letter for the class. So I started that class in January of the next year. But I never became a servant. My whole time in, I had missed it because of getting in trouble for Myspace. I was gonna be one of the brothers recommended. I know for a fact, just because of what my dad had told me, and then another brother. But because of that killed any chances I had at becoming a servant at the next CO visit. And it was during that year, actually, where a lot of stuff was going on. There was a brother and a sister who were a missionary couple who I finally found him on one of the forums. And his name was Jeff, and he was a missionary. He had a crazy story. He almost got killed while he was in Africa. And, terrible story. And I had been trying to find him for a couple years, and I finally was able to get in touch with him. And so that had happened because they lived right by us. They were into another congregation, and they were like because they were the only missionary couple that like we would ever see at like assemblies or quick builds. So we were all like, "Hey, look at you guys," and that hit hard because at the time we were like, "Oh my gosh, why would he become an apostate? He's like Superman," and I didn't find out till what I know now why. And then also I had a friend of mine kill himself because of being in a judicial committee.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.